I the jerk for not going to my dad's stepson's birthday party? I am a 17-year-old male who lives with my mom. My dad lives in another state, and until last year, I flew out and spent 6 weeks with him every summer. Last year, I told Dad I was only going to visit for a week vacation and then come back home again. He was upset, but he said he was fine with it. He wanted me to spend some time with his partner and her son. When I got to Dad's house, his girlfriend's son was in the hospital, so I did not meet them. Dad was upset and wanted me to stay, but I wanted to get back home and return to work. I visited for one weekend again this year. This year, he married his girlfriend, who is now his wife. He asked me to change the date I was planning to visit. I visited during the second week of June. His stepson's birthday is in July, and he wanted me to be there. I already had plans for July and told Dad. His mother-in-law died the day before I was due to fly out. Dad had to choose between canceling so he could be with his wife and her son or staying behind while I flew out. He decided to stay to see me. He was disappointed I still did not meet his wife or her son, especially her son, who turned 8 in July. My dad brought up his stepson's birthday to me after I flew back. I asked him why he kept talking about it, and he said he would love to fly me out for the day so I could come to the party, meet his family, and get to know my sibling. I told my dad his stepson is not my sibling. We are still strangers, and we will never be close. I told him I am not going to move closer to them when I finish school. I told him I am not going to invite them all to stay with me. We will see each other occasionally, but they will not be a big part of my life. I reminded him he chose to move and not be a big part of my life. Dad said he had his reasons, and I should embrace the chance to have a sibling. I said no, thank you. He bought a plane ticket for me for the day of the birthday party and sent it 2 days before. He told me to please come. I told him I was not coming. He even showed up at the airport with his stepson to wait for me. His wife joined them. I did not come. Ever since, Dad has been really upset when we talk on the phone. He told me he cannot understand why I am not making the effort. He said it would have meant the world to them. He also told me I had no real reason not to come, other than not wanting to make an effort for us to be a family, and it makes him sad. He also said his stepson and wife had been so excited to meet me. Am I the bad person? You are not the one to blame. Your dad missed part of your childhood and now expects you to take time out of your life to meet his other family. He needs to recognize that you're nearly an adult and can make your own decisions. If it's so important to him, he could have flown them to meet you instead of making you do all the work. Forcing a relationship this way is just putting a giant wedge between you two. Am I the jerk for not inviting my friend to join us on a day trip? My friend Tina and I have a third friend named Stella from college who has very strict parents. Lately, every time we plan something that is not convenient for Stella, it ends up being stressful for all of us, and she gets mad at us because we will not bend over backward for her parents' rules. Some of the rules include the following. She cannot be out later than 11:00 p.m. She cannot drive the family car or get her own. She cannot sleep over at anyone's house. She cannot use Uber. As her friends, we should always drive her home, even if it is more than an hour out of our way, or they call us bad friends. Despite the fact they will not even drive 5 minutes to pick her up from the train station and make her bus or walk home from there. We all do feel really bad for Stella in this situation because we know she is under a lot of pressure from her family. At the same time, it has gotten exhausting and stressful to always try to accommodate her. One time recently, she assumed one of us would drive her back after a party, despite the fact we were drinking and getting our boyfriends to drive us home. We did not want to leave by 10:00 p.m., and driving her home would turn our 30-minute drive home into 1.5 hours. Even though we never agreed that we would drive her, the party was at her boyfriend's house, so we assumed she figured something out with him. She flipped out at us at 10:30 p.m. for being late, and then did not talk to us for a week after. Another time she got upset that I planned a New Year's Eve party at my house. Even though her parents agreed to let her stay out until 12:00 a.m. this one time, it was still too far for her to get home easily, and everyone was planning on drinking and spending the night. She was mad we did not plan something closer and more convenient for her, but she is not allowed to have us over at her house and did not have any other suggestions on what else we could do near her. It felt like she just did not want us to celebrate at all. In both cases, her boyfriend ended up paying for an Uber for her home, and she just lied and told her parents that we drove her and then was angry at us after. She still regularly brings up the first event as an example of how unreliable we are. Now we are trying to plan a day trip out of the city, about a 2-hour drive from us, and we are debating just not inviting her. We already know if we do invite her, she will not have a ride. Will demand we have to leave early, will want a ride home even though her house is 40 minutes in the opposite direction, and will definitely not offer gas money, and will probably be mad at us for planning something so out of her way in the first place, even though it is a very common tourist destination in our state. We are thinking of just making it seem like a last-minute plan since her parents always say no to last-minute plans, and that way, she will not be able to come. We both feel really bad about it, but we just do not want to have our trip ruined by her parents' rules and or have her angry with us for weeks after the fact. Are we the assholes? Stella is living under some pretty strict rules for a 25-year-old, and it's understandable why not inviting her would be seen as unfair. but it's actually kinder than inviting her to something she can't attend. It's not reasonable to guilt trip someone into accommodating such absurd demands. Maybe plan some daytime events that she can actually join, but it's not necessary to do that all the time. If evening plans come up, just be honest. Stella, our plan includes staying out past 11 p.m., and we don't want to upset you with plans that don't work for you. Am I the jerk for not letting my sibling give up their seat on an MRT? Throwaway account, but I am a long-time lurker. I know context is very important, so please excuse my long context here. I, a 26-year-old male, messed up during a drive a few days ago and broke my car. I cannot drive the car for the next 7 to 10 working days at least. I have a 15-year-old brother who was born with a complex heart defect and a little bit of lung problems. He still has a lot of ongoing heart and lung issues. He has an implantable cardioverter defibrillator as well. 2 years ago, my brother was diagnosed with a neuromuscular autoimmune disease called juvenile myasthenia gravis, MJ. It causes the muscles in his entire body to become extremely weak, though the severity varies day to day, including his respiratory muscles. He developed chronic respiratory failure due to MG and also has severe asthma, chronic bronchitis, and bronchiectasis from recurrent infections. His doctor prescribed a combination of BiPAP and oxygen that he needs to use at least 16 hours a day. Since my car is broken and no one else can take my brother to his appointment for immunoglobulin infusion, I decided to take him on public transport, MRT. I am not going to lie, I am a bit tight on money right now because of the car, and a taxi is way more expensive than an RE round trip. He used his combo BiPAP and oxygen, even though he is very insecure about those breathing machines, and wore a mask to hide them a little bit. He initially did not want to use them, but he had difficulty inhaling and exhaling as well as wheezing. He also used his mobility aid, Rollator. When we entered the MRT, it was quite full, but I found 2 empty seats. My brother cannot stand up for too long. His legs will progressively weaken, and they will worsen until they feel like jelly. So he sat on one seat. The other one was occupied by an old man with a cane. For your information, they are not priority seats. Around 3 stations later, a pregnant woman with her husband entered. They looked around for a while, then the husband approached my brother and asked if his wife could use the seat. My brother wanted to stand up immediately, but I said no to them. I told the husband that my brother very clearly has a disability. It is visible with the rollator and the dangling hose from behind his mask to the backpack on the floor. He argued with me, asking, if he cannot stand up, what would you do if there is no seat available? I told him, probably he will sit on the floor. He kept going about how we should travel with our own car with his condition, etc. I answered, so should you. The argument was short, but it caught people's attention. One young woman got up from her seat so the wife could sit. He then rambled on all the way about how young people should respect women who carry, give birth, and give life to humans, etc. My dad agrees with me, but my mom said I should have been more polite. Our trip was around 1 hour. So Reddit, am I the antagonist? Absolutely, you handled things appropriately. The husband in this scenario wasn't a jerk, and your brother shouldn't be expected to give up his seat. Your brother has disabilities, and his need for a seat is likely greater than that of the pregnant woman. There are tons of other people on that MRT, and it's unreasonable to bully someone who clearly needs the seat more. Am I the jerk for yelling at my friend for being too high at my birthday party? I, a 34-year-old, have a friend, Kelsey, who is 32 and struggles with a severe ketamine addiction. Her partner is also an addict and alcoholic, but denies addiction is real. Kelsey switched from cocaine to ketamine, downplaying its severity and claiming it is just her thing. Despite having a high income and low expenses, she often begs for money for her pet's vet bills due to spending hundreds weekly on ketamine. Her behavior has worsened over the past 2 years, and she frequently lies about her drug use, blaming her disconnection on diabetes, even though there is clear ketamine residue around her nose. In the past year, Kelsey has had several alarming incidents. She went into a K-hole while holding a butcher knife. She screamed at her partner in front of me. She had drugs delivered to my house while claiming sobriety. When I voice concerns, she either dismisses or gets angry with me. She equates ketamine use with smoking or drinking. At her last birthday party, she was so impaired that she flailed on the dance floor and accidentally hit people. Her father asked me about her drug use, but I lied because she had requested I not disclose it. For my birthday party, I invited Kelsey despite my reservations, making it clear that it was a family-friendly event where drug use was unacceptable. However, she got excessively drunk and high, leading to inappropriate actions like insulting a 7-year-old and making disturbing comments about dog training. Some guests chose not to stay for the later barbecue due to her behavior, and others suspected her of drug dealing or an overdose. Towards the end of the evening, I suggested playing telestrations, but Kelsey and her partner were disruptive. She insulted me, saying my autism was autisming and I was ruining the fun. Frustrated, I yelled at her, saying it was not about my autism, but that she and her boyfriend were too high. I pointed out it was the 3rd consecutive year she had been too messed up at my party and mentioned the visible ketamine on her face. They left, and I apologized to my guests for my outburst, explaining it was not isolated. Over the next few days, guests reached out to support me, saying they understood why I acted the way I did. I later sent Kelsey a letter apologizing for how I yelled, but making it clear that her behavior was unacceptable and hurtful. I told her I needed to step away for now, but hoped she could turn her life around. She responded with a letter obsessively praising my husband and making personal attacks against me. She accused me of being terrible and claimed several guests apologized to her for my behavior, saying everyone was too afraid to be honest with me. Am I the asshole? Addiction is hard, but right now, that's not your friend, that's someone else. At this party, she broke your rules and requests one too many times, and you've already asked her nicely before. It's tricky because she may need support, but it sounds like you've tried before, so the lash out was justified. If anything, you were too kind. She should have been kicked out as soon as she turned up like that. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend she should wash her stuffed animal? So I, male, 30, recently got into a disagreement with my girlfriend, female 24, over a stuffed animal she keeps while she sleeps. I will clear up right away that I have no issue with the fact that she sleeps with one. I personally have many stuffed toys for my hobbies, but I have never regularly had a stuffed animal or comfort object that I sleep with. My perspective is definitely skewed compared to hers or people who regularly use a comfort object to sleep. The issue arose from a conversation we had via text earlier today. She has been sick during our travels recently, and I have just been trying to go down the checklist of things that can help her get better faster. This includes taking medicine regularly, drinking lots of fluids, and getting bed rest. One thing I have noted is she sleeps with the same stuffed animal every night that she brought with us on our travels. We have only been together and sharing a bed for about a month, so this is also relatively new to me. According to her, it is a stuffed animal that has likely never been washed, and she has had it since her childhood. It has probably been around for more than 15 years without being washed. The appearance of it is what you would expect, somewhat grimy and brown. I am trying to remain neutral in my wording, so I would not exactly call it filthy, but it has definitely been well loved over the years. My argument or perspective was that I think the stuffed animal could be getting her sick more often. Especially during times like right now, it should be common sense to hand wash it and let it dry without putting it in a dryer. Alternatively, we could wash it according to what Google suggests so it does not get ruined. This would avoid letting it become a host of germs, sickness-inducing dust, or mites. To this point, I was met with pushback from her, saying, literally, nobody has ever gotten sick from an unwashed stuffed animal, and that my mom is a nurse. And if the stuffed animal was an actual issue, she would have done something about it. She got very offended by the mere suggestion that her stuffed animal could be at all unhygienic. I was trying to avoid starting a fight over this, but I simply could not, and still cannot, see the reasoning as to why she does not want to wash it, other than an attachment to the smell of home it probably carries. At the moment, she has gone back to sleep to rest more from the sickness, but we have left the disagreement on hold. Probably anything I say further is just going to agitate her, but I still do not feel like I have said anything wrong. Am I the bad person? You did nothing wrong here. Seriously, stuffed animals can be washed without ruining them, unless they have particularly fragile components. Proper cleaning can actually prevent fabric dry rot and will improve the life of the stuffed animal. If anything, it can be framed as the plush deserving to be cared for and cleaned. Am I the jerk for convincing my sister to change her baby's name? This is my first time posting on Reddit after a long time lurking. My sister, a 19-year-old female, announced to the family that she and her boyfriend were pregnant a few months ago. She immediately followed it up with the name she had chosen. Tyler if it was a boy, after the father, or Savory if it was a girl, pronounced Savory. Apparently she liked the name Avery but wanted to make it unique, hence the extra letter. Obviously, this is a terrible name for a baby, and I politely asked if they were considering any other names. She said no, that they had already decided. My sister and I are not really close, so I decided to let it be and congratulated her. A while later, my sister announced that they were definitely having a girl, and that little Savory was healthy so far. At this point, I decided to become more involved with my sister, since this was going to be my first niece or nephew. But I could not stop thinking about the poor kid getting teased for her name. My sister has untreated borderline personality disorder, and any direct challenge to her decisions always escalates to a huge blowout. So I had to play my cards carefully. I got her a specific baby name book from our mother, the very same book our mother had gotten both of our names from. She loved this gift, and we spent all night eating snacks and going through it. That night, I opened up about my concerns for the name she had chosen and the bullying that might come from it, which she was receptive to because we had both been bullied in school. Over the next few weeks, I said things like, "Oh, this would be a cute name," or "I saw the coolest list of names on Pinterest." My sister loved some of the names, and finally, after all of that, she announced that she had settled on the name Margot instead, taken from the baby name book. I was overjoyed at having saved my niece from a life of being named the way someone would describe a steak. Shortly afterward, I got a text from my sister's boyfriend, whom I did not really know at all because he was never home when I was there, calling me all sorts of terrible things for getting involved in his family. I asked what he was talking about, and he continued to insult me because he chose the name Savory, and I had no right to change it. I pointed out that I was only interested in the well-being of my niece, and that my sister was my family, so I had a right to an opinion. This man had the nerve to tell me that I was an idiot, that I did not know anything about family since I was still single despite being older than both of them. I pointed out that I clearly was not the dumbest one in the conversation since I did not try to name my daughter after a literal piece of meat. Now my sister is angry at me for getting involved and calling her boyfriend stupid, even though he said much more hurtful things in his texts to me. Am I the antagonist? You are not to blame. A girl named Savory is bound to get some double takes and a few jokes, but when the teenage years arrive and beyond, she's going to face unnecessary harassment over it. Babies are not dogs, and giving them a stupid name has long-term consequences. This poor kid is going to have irresponsible parents. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.